Who can take a flower, roll it up and make it fine, sprinkle it with knowledge and a little bit of time, cover it with headlines and a sweet euphoria too. Cannabis man can. Who can take a story and make it feel so grand, spread the word around about the wonders of this land, mix it all with laughter and a sprinkle of insight. Cannabis man flies. Ooh, Cannabis man, spreading news and joy across the land, diving deep into the glowing green. Cannabis man, we're all king. Ooh yeah. Ooh yeah. Ooh yeah. Cannabis man, spreading news and joy across the land, diving deep into the growing green. Cannabis man, we're all king. Ooh yeah. Ooh yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Welcome into another episode of the Cannabis Man podcast. Thank you so much for clicking on the show, and I am your host, Don Kleppen. I hope you're having a wonderful day, evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this, wherever you are around the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is a very exciting time for us connoisseurs. Anybody who has ever tried cannabis, maybe you're just curious about it, this is a show where we're trying to take a journalistic look at all the changes that are happening along the legal cannabis landscape here in the United States, where I am in Chicago, Illinois, as well as around the world. This is a very, very exciting time of great change, and there's a lot of news on that front to talk about. A lot of big changes came through this week, including the public comment period for the rescheduling from Schedule 1 down to Schedule 3. That is now open. I will tell you about how you can get involved there and how many people have already made their voices heard, which is very exciting. There have also been some pretty big changes here in Illinois regarding regulation of hemp-based products. I'm going to tell you about those. And there are moves to amend the federal farm bill to change the regulation of hemp products. I'm going to talk about that later in the show, too. If you would be so kind, and if you haven't already, please leave a rating or a review for this show. However you're listening to this, if it's Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whichever platform you're on, there's a function to either like, rate, or review the show. Any of that is really helpful. And you can always become a subscriber to the show through Buzzsprout by clicking that support the show link in the description notes. And if you do that, you'll get your name shouted out in the next episode, as well as a big thank you email from me. Also, follow the show at C-Man Podcast on social media, X and Instagram, as well as the Cannabis Man Podcast Facebook page and YouTube channel. I often share little things, either pictures, memes, thoughts about certain things, news stories. I do that on those channels throughout the week in between when I release these episodes. So if you like what I'm doing here, if you want to stay up to date on what's happening with cannabis, by all means, follow the show on those channels. And also, do me a favor, if you have any friends who are into podcasts, if you know people who are paying attention to the cannabis community like you are, share this show with them. Spread the word, let people know what I'm doing out here. This is, again, I've talked about it, this is a one-man operation. I'm doing everything I can to try and grow the show, to try and make it better and keep putting out good content. But I have two jobs. I'm a broadcaster here in Chicago. I do news and traffic on the radio 5 days out of the week. I do voiceover work. If you want to hear some of that, you can check out my website, donkleppin, KLEPPIN.com. My agents send me auditions throughout the week, and then I read the scripts and I send them back. And my wife Gretchen and I just had our daughter Violet. She is turning 6 weeks old tonight from when I'm recording this on May 24th. I cannot believe that it's been 6 weeks already. And hey, it's my birthday tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to a great weekend. I hope you have some good plans to spend time with people you love this Memorial Day weekend. Here in the U.S., it is definitely the kickoff, the unofficial start to summer. A lot of people do some traveling. A lot of people make plans to barbecue or just spend time outside. Maybe you know someone with a pool. Maybe you live somewhere near a lake like I do over here along Lake Michigan. Any body of water that you're near, a lot of people like to, jump in that, kind of kick off the summer season that way. Whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're planning, or maybe you've got to work. I know that I'm working tomorrow morning like normal too. Sometimes, hey, you got to pay the bills. Sometimes you got to do those shifts. And whatever it is that you're doing, whatever you have planned for this Memorial Day weekend, I do hope that you get some time to talk with or spend time with people that you care about, your loved ones, close connections. That really is the sweetest stuff that we get here on this earth through this life that we all get to live. The connections and the meaningful emotional attachments, those really are the currency. At the end of all of this, whenever we get to that, those are the currency that add up to how full your life was. So I like to try and stress on the show every week, do your future self a favor, reach out to those people that you care about, your loved ones, tell them how much you care about them, and spend time with them whenever you can, because none of us have those opportunities forever. Nothing lasts forever, and the time to enjoy those things is right now. And right now, I have some cannabis news stories and events related to it and perspective to share with you all here. So let's get into this episode of the Cannabis Man Podcast.
This is Tommy Chong, and you're listening to the Cannabis broadcast.
And there we go. The show is open. I want to start right now by packing up my little Dynavap M7 and get into the strain of the week. I have just finished up the apples and bananas from Simply Herb that I bought last week, restocking after quite a while. It had been a minute since I'd been into the Wrigleyville Sunnyside, just had some supply, and after Violet got in here, I have been smoking less. I've definitely just been consuming less cannabis. You might think that's counterintuitive with all the stress and lack of sleep of being a new parent, new dad, and everything like that, but I am still consuming because I find that it helps me, certainly, as with all things. It helps me deal with anxieties, it helps me get to sleep, helps me deal with not getting to sleep, all of those things that I've leaned on cannabis for before. I'm still doing that, but for whatever reason, I'm finding that a little bit is going a long way for me here, and I really do feel like part of that is using the Dynavap M7. If you are just hearing about this for the first time, check out Dynavap.com. This is a fully unpaid endorsement. I love George Brewa. I've had him on the show a few times. If you haven't listened to my interviews with George, I've got 2 episodes featuring him. After this is done, I highly recommend you go back and listen to those. What George has done with Dynavap is he has made dry herb vaporizing easy, convenient, portable. It just makes it wonderful. I don't know about you, listener, but when I was coming up and just getting into cannabis, the people who had vaporizers, it was either one of those volcanoes, one of those big $350 devices that's got a little base, and you would snap a plastic bag on the top, and you would put your weed in there, and it would toast it and blow the air into the bag, filling it up, and then you would pop a little mouthpiece on it, and you would kind of, maybe yourself or take turns with friends, just taking the air out of that bag, inhaling it, and then refilling it again and again. Or you had a smaller little, not quite portable, but a smaller version of the volcano, a little box that would plug in, and then you would put the weed that was ground up into a little drawer, and you'd flip the switch, and that box would heat up the weed, and there would be a little clear rubber hose that came out of that, and you would put that hose in your mouth and just kind of inhale directly from that vaporizer. Neither of these were portable. Both are pretty inconvenient, especially now. And my point is, these devices that George and the guys at Dynavap have created have just completely changed the game in terms of dry herb vaporizing. And the reason I'm geeking about this now is because I really do feel like this has had an impact on how much weed I'm going through at one time. My supply, and I talked about this with George, my supply, whatever I get, it lasts me longer than it did when I was just burning it through whether I packed joints or put it in bowls or bongs, however it is that you choose to consume. The analogy that George uses is you're baking your cookies when you dry herb vaporize, as opposed to burning them when you just use the typical burning method of cannabis. If you light your pre-roll or if you light the bowl using a heating source, whether that's a butane torch or a lighter or whatever it is you use, when you burn the cannabis and inhale and smoke it like normal, that cannabis just gets torched and then that's it. You ash it out and then it's done with. When you use these vaporizers, you're toasting it, you inhale the vapor, and the weed is still there left over. You can either take a bunch of it and roll blunts if you want to. We used to do that back in my early 20s, which they never really tasted that great. I don't recommend that. What I do recommend is keeping the stuff that you vape, and then when you have enough of it, bake with it. My wife sometimes, we haven't done this in a while, but she'll take the stuff that I have vaped, I keep it in a jar, I just ash this out when I'm done with it in a little jar, and then when I'm done with that and the jar is like full enough, we'll just bake some cookies or some brownies around here, and you can get kind of double use out of the weed by vaporizing it instead of smoking it. So my point is, I love these Dynavap products. Again, not being paid to say this. This is just something that I really, really enjoy, and I want to share it with you. If you haven't tried these, or if you feel like it's a little daunting, because I know that some people aren't really familiar with the vaping, especially not these portable ones, Dynavap has some videos that instruct you on how to do it, and I have put out some videos myself at C-Man Podcast on Instagram. You can see me using these things if you want to go check that out. But love the M7, and I really enjoy these apples and bananas from Simply Herb, which is a brand that I've talked about before. I love their price point, and I just kind of love what their brand is about. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you get to enjoy some time to smoke this Memorial Day weekend, and I'm getting the day started right now. Cheers to a happy Friday. Apples and bananas. That's good stuff. The noise that you're hearing, that this is a little tiny kitchen blowtorch that I ordered from Amazon. You fill it with butane, and I know people use it in the kitchen to make things like creme brulee or whatever you want to. I've been using this as kind of a portable heating source. I know Dynavap sells some as well that you can clip to your keychain. What you just need is any kind of heating source. You can use a regular lighter too. It just takes a little bit longer. Plus, if you're outside, you've obviously got to deal with the wind, which can oftentimes just blow the flame out of that lighter, and you got to keep clicking and starting it over again. Whereas something like a butane torch or one of these kitchen blowtorches, I take this thing outside and you can just heat up whatever your Dynavap product is. Listen for those clicks. I know it's hard to hear when I've got the blowtorch going, but the Dynavap products let you know when they've reached the right temperature by giving you kind of a double click. Once you hear that, you can stop heating it up and then just kind of inhale it and you're good to go. Alrighty. Now let's roll on into the News Joint Wrap. This is a wrap-up of news stories and events related to cannabis in and around Illinois, and it's curated for you by IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Think of it as the joint you can hit for all your Illinois cannabis news and reviews. The big story of this week, I'm going to jump right into this, and Jason Brown of Illinois News Joint has a great article kind of breaking down the specifics, but the big news from Illinois this week is that the Hemp Consumer Products Act transforms Illinois regulations. That's the headline from Jason Brown. This article came out just yesterday, Thursday of this week from when I'm recording this. And I'll go through this and kind of give my thoughts on it afterward. The battle over hemp regulations in Illinois shifted significantly today when Senate Amendment 002 was included into unrelated House Bill 4293, which addresses the Massage Licensing Act and the Sex Offender Registration Act. Amendment 002, cited as the Hemp Consumer Products Act, includes new hemp definitions, regulations, taxes, licensing, civil penalties, and provisions that would require hemp and hemp-derived businesses to follow laws set forth in the Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Act and the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. Under emergency rulemaking, which allows Illinois departments a fast track to impose and implement temporary rules while working through the law, Amendment 002 would provide for the expeditious and timely implementation of the Hemp Consumer Products Act and is deemed to be necessary for the public interest, safety, and welfare. The Hemp Consumer Products Act was referred to executive, where the amendment was recommended for adoption. If passed, the Hemp Consumer Products Act would begin January 1st of next year, 2025. One of the most significant definition changes in the amendment for tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, which would be defined as, quote, any naturally occurring or synthetic THC, including its salts, isomers, and salts of isomers whenever the existence of such salts, isomers, and salts of isomers is possible within the specific chemical designation, and any preparation, mixture, or substance containing or mixed or infused with any detectable amount of THC or THCA, including but not limited to Delta 8 THC, Delta 9, Delta 10 THCA, tetrahydrocannabiferol, however derived, or any other substance determined to have similar intoxicating effects on the mind or body by the department. For the purposes of this definition, isomer means the optical, position, and geometric isomers. Another significant definition addition includes, quote, industrial hemp processor, which means any entity that processes or handles industrial hemp into a final product not intended for human or animal consumption that is registered with the department. And then Jason goes into some new provisions of that processing include A, a person may not process industrial hemp in this state without registering for a license with the department on a form prescribed by the department. B, the application for a license shall include the name and address of the applicant and the address of the location at which hemp will be processed. And then C, the department may determine by rule the duration of a hemp processor registration application and fees and the requirements for registration renewal. Now, there are a few more bullet points of this, and then there's a lot more information that Jason goes into. You can kind of tell there's a lot of government lingo here as Jason quotes directly the language in this legislation, which is great. But I know that it's definitely hard to read. This is why this is a job, and Jason does a fantastic job of covering it. But that's a big reason why I don't always go through all of these articles, because I know it's kind of tough to listen to after a while. However, some perspective on this, I'm of two minds on this. One, and I think most importantly, my top thought is this is a good thing. I have talked with guests on this show in the past about the unsafe nature of a lot of these hemp-derived products. There are great hemp-derived products on the market, regulated, made by responsible people. I'm thinking of a lot of the beverages. I'm thinking of a lot of the gummies. I've had makers on this show of those products, and some of them I fully endorse. I think they're great. But there are many, many products. And there are, as I've mentioned before, stores right on my block. And many, many more throughout the city of Chicago, throughout the country of America, and throughout the world, I'm sure. Any place where hemp products have been legal, I know that these Delta THC products, you see those neon signs in the windows, these substitutes like Kratom, these shops that have popped up, they, up until this point, up until January 1st, really, of next year, they have not been regulated. And as such, they have not been vetted under the same standards of products, ideally, that are on dispensary shelves. there's nobody looking into what the labels have to do with what is on the inside in terms of the product. There's no nutrition label information like there are at dispensaries. There can literally be a handwritten note serving as the label on some of these products. And even though we may understand the distinction between those and just basic cannabis products like flower, like edibles, like concentrates, whatever, but that were grown specifically for cannabis consumption, we understand the distinction between these hemp-derived products versus cannabis that was always grown for consumption. We might get that distinction, but not everybody does. And those people will tie together THC, CBD, weed products and these hemp-derived Delta products when something goes wrong. When there's a news story about somebody that, had a health issue after consuming one of these, or on the extreme case, like last year, that Bryn Spejker situation where the lady, allegedly smoked a bong and then stabbed her boyfriend and dog and tried to stab herself in the neck and all of that. On the extreme end, you've got that. So my viewpoint is that the more regulation to keep people safe when using these products and the elimination of this kind of Wild West free-for-all where people who set up those businesses were not subject to the same standards and regulations, I think all that's a good thing. But getting back to the responsible product makers, I'm thinking of things like Warehouse Beverage, who make the Wink and Countdown drinks. I'm thinking of CBD Prime on Maui, and Cheyenne down there. She's a responsible business owner. I'm thinking of Cornbread Hemp. There are many responsible entrepreneurs out there, people who make great products that are hemp-derived. And the other side of this issue that I feel is that those people now are going to have to jump through some more hoops, and maybe some of them won't end up surviving this regulation. And that is a real shame. There's no way of getting around that. It sucks when we as consumers lose great products in the market. It sucks when anyone who's put so much into a business, invested their energy, their time, their money, their hopes, all of those things. It sucks to see that kind of just, get plowed over if they're unable to meet these certainly more rigid standards and potentially frustrating. But, this is kind of a microcosm of the legal cannabis journey at large. The movement from full prohibition and thus Wild West black market, the movement from that to fully legal and legitimate is clunky. It is more strict than I think some would like it. And it is unfortunately littered with the wreckage of companies that didn't make it through, that weren't able to kind of keep up with or meet the regulations that were then imposed. And admittedly, that sucks. But that is kind of the nature of markets and of regulation. Going from no rules to rules does suck, because now you have to contort yourself. Now you have to meet someone else's demands and standards. Now there's you have to start walking lines and making sure your license is up to date and all these different things. But that is the price for us consumers of the regulation. That's the price of making sure things are on the up and up, of making sure that those other businesses that really were giving the good hemp-derived product makers a bad name, those ones falling by the wayside is a good thing for us consumers. And creating a floor that is above the current standard to which these businesses need to now climb, that is ultimately a good thing. And the future is going to be better because of it, once we get beyond this period of uncomfortable readjustment. So anyway, like I said, I am of two minds on that. I really can see it from both sides. And all we can do right now is hope that a lot of these really great products and businesses are able to meet the new standards, and we as Illinois consumers get to keep enjoying these. And then a reminder here, visit Illinois News Joint at NECAN. The Illinois Cannabis Conference is next weekend already. We are through May just about, and we're heading into that early June and into summer properly. Meteorological summer, as they say. And Illinois News Joint will be there. This is running at the Schaumburg Convention Center, May 31st and June 1st, Friday and Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. So stop by and say hello to Jason and everybody. And one more event to tell you about. Green Rose is going to host Sesh and Salute celebration. They hosted a 420 event back in April and also a Spooky Sesh in October. And then tomorrow, my birthday, the 25th, Green Rose River North will add the Sesh fun with a Sesh and Salute celebration. You can reserve tickets at Illinois News Joint here, and it runs from 12 to 8 p.m. at the Green Rose River North at 612 North Wells Street. You'll see Illinois Cannabis brand pop-ups there with free swag and giveaways, the Puff Bus on location, live sets by Icy, BBY, and DJ Papa G, free desserts from Chicago Sugar, glass-blowing demo by Soft Spoken Glass, and you'll also see local Chicago artist Lika Vision body painting guests and performing other live art. Both sound like such a great time. Always love reading about the upcoming cannabis events as well as news stories, all of which you can find covered and detailed at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Before I move on to the national news, listener, I want to remind you, I love combining cannabis and coffee. I talk about it often on the show here. I don't know if you're a fan of that combo or if you've never tried it, but it was referred to as I was growing up as a hippie speedball, and I do enjoy starting my days that way. I'm recording this more toward midday, so I already had the coffee earlier this morning, and I have been getting my coffee from the guys at Split Rock Coffee. These guys really know what they're doing. They make such delicious bags. They know how to value a good quality bean. They know how to treat it and roast it, and they know how to preserve it, and then they ship it right to your door so you can have these things, a steaming mug, or make an iced batch if you like. Summer's coming, temperatures warm up, and coffee's good cold, I'll say it. I enjoy a nice cold brew, especially when it's, humid or muggy outside. I gotta say, as much as I love hot coffee, always love it, summertime I have been leaning into the cold drinks. So you can make some of that. They've got 100% Colombian. They've got a nice breakfast blend. They have a cold brew kit. Whatever you're thinking in terms of your cup of coffee, the guys at Split Rock Coffee have it. And if you scroll down into the description notes, you'll see a Vouch store link. You click on that and you can order products from Split Rock, as well as some other products there if you're interested. So whether you're getting the workday started or just kind of starting off on a weekend, like a holiday weekend like this one, start your day off right with Split Rock Coffee. Now into the national news, and this story is related to the hemp regulation bill that just went through Illinois. There is a federal movement here to do the exact same thing as the Illinois legislation just did. A U.S. House of Representatives committee has approved an amendment to the $1.5 trillion federal farm bill that proposes a ban on most hemp products, including all cannabinoids synthesized or manufactured outside of the plant, such as Delta-8 THC. This article comes from the Marijuana Herald. It was published by Anthony Martinelli earlier this week. The article starts with a quote from Congressmember Mary Miller, a Republican from Illinois. "My amendment will close the loophole created in the 2018 Farm Bill that allows intoxicating hemp products like Delta-8 to be sold. These products are being marketed to children and sending hundreds of them to the hospital. We must stop teenagers and young children from being exposed to addictive and harmful drugs." I would also add to that, just regular old adults as well. That was kind of my point in that segment about the Illinois market here too. When these things aren't regulated, even the people who are making great products, ultimately, you're dancing with fire. If we're going to make this truly normalized, if we're going to do this thing, regulations are always going to be a part of it. The amendment was approved by the committee and would prohibit nearly all products containing Delta-8 and Delta-9 THC, as well as all other novel cannabinoids derived from hemp. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable said the amendment, quote, would federally ban all ingestible hemp products with any level of THC. saying this amendment from Rep. Mary Miller would not only ban potentially impairing products like Delta-8, but it would bring under a new prohibition all non-intoxicating CBD products with any quantifiable amount of THC, meaning 90 to 95% of the hemp product market would be federally banned. Even animal feed, which that bill in Illinois mentioned too, which has been approved by the FDA for these uses, would be banned. Redefining hemp to include a calculation of THCA would even wreak havoc in the fiber and grain market. At the time of the publication, the committee continues to consider the Farm Bill in its entirety. That is the end of the article. I really appreciate that from the Marijuana Herald. I've linked it below. You can read it for yourself. So this federal move here, I gotta say I'm not as on board with. I don't love the idea of a 90 to 95% ban. I would like there to be some, create a committee in each state or whatever to evaluate these things. Take it on a case-by-case basis. That's the way these things should always be handled. Examine the businesses that are doing it, all of them. And the ones that are doing it the right way, whose products fit a certain standard, let them continue what they're doing. And the ones that fail to meet these standards shouldn't be operating anyway. Take it case by case. Don't just sort of blanket ban this and wipe all these people off. This has been 6 years since the 2018 Farm Bill. There have been a lot of businesses that have been created, that have gotten up and running, that have been, doing well and bringing good products to people who want them. This is something that should be taken on a case-by-case basis. Moving on, U.S. cannabis edibles brand enters Japanese CBD market. This would be the Kana brand. They launch a new wellness line in Japan. You'll recall my interview with Cameron Clark recently of Kana, the CEO, and he was very excited to enter Thailand as a market. And we were talking then about how they had their eyes on other markets in Europe as well as in Asia. And you already see this is already crazy. They entered the Japanese market. So it's just very exciting to have a truly global cannabis brand being established here right before our eyes. Kana is really good stuff. I'm looking forward to trying their products, and I'll give you a review of those once I do. That's very exciting. And then back in the States, High Times has an article here that says a Delaware bill would allow medical cannabis operators to sell adult use cannabis. In preparation for Delaware's launch of adult use sales, this new bill would permit medical cannabis business owners to apply for a temporary conversion license to sell adult use cannabis as well. This is a new bill being proposed in Delaware. Nicole Potter published this week on May 22nd at High Times. I've linked this article below. House Bill 408, recently introduced on May 16th by sponsors Representative Ed Ozienski and Senator Trey Paradis. Delaware's Marijuana Control Act was enacted last April 2023 without the signature of Governor John Carney and went into effect starting August 1st of last year. It created 4 different license types, but none of which currently permit medical cannabis compassion centers to take part in the upcoming launch of adult use sales. And as I mentioned before, this bill 408 would create a temporary conversion license that allows exactly that. Earlier this year, Ozienski introduced another bill, House Bill 285, which aims to expand the Delaware medical cannabis program. Medical cannabis was first legalized in Delaware in 2011, but sales didn't start until 2015 when the first dispensary got up and running. And this is the last story I'll do. This is a national focus here, but it's big news, and it was coming ever since the DEA made their announcement about rescheduling, but this kicked off officially on Tuesday, and what it is the public comment period, the 60-day public comment period that comes with any administrative change to this schedule of drugs under the Controlled Substances Act. That has begun, and I've already read that apparently over 3,000 people have made their voices heard. Over 2/3 approved of the rescheduling and urged them to decriminalize cannabis altogether, ending that prohibition that's over 50 years old now. And it's a reflection of the country at large. We've seen in many polls polls, anything ranging from 66%, the 2/3, to up to about 85% or so of the country approving of legal cannabis in some fashion. So this public comment period is open until July 22nd. And since this party just started, we have almost the full 60 days left, 58 from when I'm recording this. And I have linked below the place where you can view the form of public comment and you can see where to submit it and all of that stuff. Now know that these are part of the public record, so whatever you say is going to be on that record, so keep that in mind. But by all means, click the link below in the description notes, check out that reference point, and submit your comments, because this is something we should all be taking advantage of. It's a beautiful opportunity to make our voices heard directly to the government, and let's keep this train moving and let them know that ending the cannabis prohibition is exactly what all of us want to see happen. That is where I will leave it for this week, listener. Thank you so much for checking out the show. Be sure to follow the show at C-Man Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and it's the Cannabis Man Podcast Facebook page and YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, however you're listening right now, be sure to leave a rating or a review. Really appreciate that. And become a subscriber by scrolling down and clicking the support the show link in the description notes. Enjoy this Memorial Day weekend if you're here in America, and if you're anywhere else, just enjoy the weekend. And as I always say, spend time with those you love. Give them a call. Tell them you love them, because time is short, and this stuff is always important. You'll never regret it, I promise you that. And as you may have heard, my daughter Violet just told me it's time to go. So have a great weekend. We'll talk next week on the Cannabis Man Podcast. Cannabis Man is 100% originally crafted by myself, Don Kleppen. Original theme music written and composed by Yusu Kim, aka Good Son.